In the summer of 2013, a quiet strawberry farm in Millbrook County became the center of a haunting disappearance. 19-year-old Luke Brennan left home in his favorite yellow shirt, carrying baskets of fresh berries to the farmer's market. He never returned. The sheriff told the town not to worry. Luke had probably run off with a seasonal farmhand, maybe chasing dreams on the West Coast. Many believed it. But 2 years later, a shocking discovery shattered that story. On an abandoned property, a clothesline stretched across the yard with 7 shirts, each belonging to a missing farm boy. Among them was Luke's. What followed was a descent into the darkest corners of rural America. A predator trusted by everyone, boys vanishing unnoticed, and the horrifying truth that Luke hadn't disappeared at all. He'd been kept. This is the story of a missing farm boy, a network of secrets, and a predator hiding in plain sight. If you're drawn into this mystery, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and share this video with friends who love true crime investigations. The morning of July 2013 broke warm and golden over Millbrook County. At the Brennan Strawberry Farm, 19-year-old Luke Brennan loaded crates of freshly picked berries into the family truck, joking with his father and younger brother before heading out. Luke wore his favorite yellow shirt, the one with faded floral patterns that his brother teased him about. To Luke, it felt lucky. He believed the shirt always brought good sales at the farmer's market. His father waved from the porch, calling out reminders about gas money and the heat. Luke answered with his usual grin, slinging the last crate into place before climbing behind the wheel. It felt like just another day, but there was a subtle weight in the air, one that no one noticed at the time. The fields were buzzing with cicadas, the dogs barked near the barn, and dust swirled as Luke drove away. Hours passed, and the farm settled into routine. His older brother worked the irrigation lines, while their uncle sharpened tools by the shed. By sundown, though, the truck hadn't returned, and unease crept across the yard. At first, they dismissed it. Maybe Luke stayed late, helping another vendor pack up, or maybe he'd gone into town with friends. But as the evening shadows grew, the worry turned into something heavier. By nightfall, Luke's father had driven into Millbrook to search. The market was closed, stalls empty. A few vendors said they'd seen Luke earlier in the day, cheerful, unloading crates. But no one saw him leave. The sheriff's office got the call before midnight. Sheriff Tom Garrett arrived at the Brennan farm, notebook in hand, boots still dusty from his last patrol. He asked the usual questions, wrote down routine answers. Had Luke argued with anyone recently? No. Any trouble with the law? No. A girlfriend? None. Sheriff Garrett nodded slowly, chewing his pen cap, before offering the simplest explanation. Boys his age get restless. He probably left on his own. Luke's father bristled at the suggestion, insisting his son wouldn't just disappear. His brothers agreed. Luke loved the farm, loved his family, loved the sense of responsibility. Running away didn't fit him at all. But rumors spread quickly in a small county. By the next day, townsmen whispered that Luke had run off with a seasonal farmhand, maybe headed west chasing adventure. Others claimed he was tired of farm life. Within a week, search efforts slowed. Deputies combed a few back roads, checked local motels, even drove through truck stops. Nothing turned up. Luke Brennan had simply vanished, and the silence around his absence grew deafening. 6 months later, the official word from the sheriff's office was short and cold. Luke had most likely left willingly, no crime suspected, case closed. Another farm boy who wanted more than endless fields and early mornings. The Brennan men carried the weight in different ways. His father grew quieter, shoulders bent with years that hadn't yet passed. His brothers still scanned crowds, still checked every blonde-haired stranger, still felt hearts lurch at glimpses of yellow shirts. But time is a cruel companion. The town moved on, treating Luke as another boy who drifted away. His disappearance became little more than a cautionary tale swapped at the barbershop and diner booths. Only within the walls of the Brennan farmhouse did hope flicker stubbornly. His father kept Luke's room untouched. His brothers kept watch, knowing deep down that something darker than running away had happened that day. And on a forgotten back road 2 years later, that darkness would reveal itself in the most haunting way possible. A row of shirts, swaying gently in the wind, one of them unmistakably yellow. The months after Luke vanished moved slowly, like a clock missing half its gears. The Brennan farmhouse felt emptier, the fields quieter, and every sunrise seemed to sharpen the absence left behind. His father became a man of silence, rising earlier, working later, burying his grief beneath sweat and soil. The brothers followed suit, each finding different ways to pretend normalcy, while the memory of Luke lingered everywhere. At town gatherings, people spoke less about him. Early on, men offered sympathy, shook hands, promised prayers. By the first harvest without Luke, most had stopped mentioning his name altogether, as though forgetting made it easier. Luke's oldest brother, Tyler, refused to accept it. Every trip into town meant scanning faces at diners, truck stops, bus depots. He called numbers from missing person boards, chased rumors of boys heading west. Nothing stuck. The youngest brother, Aaron, struggled in quieter ways. He replayed the last morning in his head. Luke's easy grin, his wave, the yellow shirt. He blamed himself for not insisting on going along. Their uncle, steady and practical, tried to anchor the family. He spoke often of moving forward, of keeping the farm alive. Yet even he checked the mail daily, hoping for a letter that never came. The farm survived those years by muscle memory. Strawberries ripened, hay was baled, machinery fixed. But something essential had been ripped out of their rhythm. No harvest ever tasted the same without Luke. The sheriff visited twice in the first year. Both times he gave the same speech. No evidence of foul play, likely voluntary departure, resources needed elsewhere. It sounded rehearsed, like a line he'd repeated many times. Tyler kept pressing. He brought up inconsistencies, gaps in witness accounts, stories that didn't add up. Sheriff Garrett would nod politely, then remind him, "Boys run off, son. Happens more often than you'd believe." But Tyler didn't believe it. Neither did Aaron. Nor did their father, whose quiet evenings were spent staring out the window as though Luke might walk up the drive. Dusty boots, apologetic smile, excuses ready. 2 years of silence hardened into something unbearable. Neighbors stopped asking questions. Friends stopped visiting. Even relatives from other towns grew hesitant, not wanting to reopen wounds with small talk about the missing boy. One night, Tyler found himself in Luke's untouched room. The yellow shirt's twin, a second one bought that same summer, hung in the closet. Tyler clenched it in his hands, promising not to give up. The brothers started keeping records of other disappearances. Boys who had gone missing from nearby counties, each story brushed aside as wanderlust. It formed a troubling pattern that no one seemed willing to acknowledge. Still, there was nothing tangible, just suspicion, fear, and memory. Without proof, the Brennan men lived suspended between hope and grief, unable to move forward, unable to let go. 2 winters passed, each one colder than the last. The family farm endured, but the men who worked it moved like ghosts, carrying the weight of a story no one else wanted to hear. Then came a day in late summer when a friend took a wrong turn on a back road. He spotted something fluttering in the wind, shirts, 7 of them, lined neatly in the sun. Among them hung a yellow shirt, faded but unmistakable. The silence of 2 years cracked in an instant, and the Brennan brothers would soon learn that Luke's disappearance was never a runaway story at all. It was late afternoon when Mark Watts, Luke's closest friend, drove the familiar county road. He'd delivered honey jars to the market many times before, never once taking the overgrown gravel track that curved away. That day, though, something caught his eye, a streak of color between the trees. At first, he thought it was paint peeling from a shed, but the flash of yellow made his stomach lurch. He slowed the truck, gravel crunching beneath the tires. The track looked abandoned, weeds pushing up through the ruts, branches scraping the sides. Curiosity pulled him forward. Something about that color felt undeniable. The property was known in stories, the old Hendricks place. Everyone remembered when Carl Hendricks lost it to the bank back in '98. Since then, the house had rotted slowly, windows fogged with dirt. Mark left his engine running. He knew better than to snoop, but something about the silence felt wrong. The back path was worn, unnaturally clear, as though someone had walked it often in recent weeks. Then he saw them, a clothesline stretched tight, 7 shirts hanging perfectly spaced, blue gingham, green work shirt, red pullover, white linen, and in the middle, motionless in the still air, a faded yellow shirt. Mark's knees buckled as recognition hit. That shirt wasn't just yellow. It was Luke's. Every pattern in the fabric burned into memory from 2 summers earlier when Luke had twirled in front of a mirror, laughing. He fumbled his phone, calling Tyler Brennan. "You need to come now," he rasped. "The Hendricks property off County Road 47. It's Luke's shirt, the yellow one. I'm staring right at it." Silence on the other end. Then Tyler's voice, tight and cold. "Don't touch anything. I'm 10 minutes out." Mark stayed rooted, torn between waiting and the gnawing need to search further. The barn stood nearby, its door slightly ajar. Oil on the hinges suggested recent use. Inside, beneath dusty tarps, sat farm tools. But in the corner, a modern tool chest, papers scattered on the floor. Mark crouched, picking one up. A maintenance log signed by Carl Hendricks. Another paper, Holstead Farm, 2003. Another, Morrison Farm, 2009, each tied to a missing boy whose case had long been forgotten. Tyler arrived fast, tires spitting gravel. He saw the line of shirts, stopped dead. His hand reached toward the yellow one, then drew back, trembling. "That's his," he whispered. "That's Luke's." Mark handed over the papers. Tyler's face drained of color. "Carl Hendricks fixed our harvester the week before Luke vanished." His fists clenched. "He was at every farm." The realization settled like lead between them. Sheriff Garrett pulled up next, reading the documents, his jaw tightening. "Jesus," he muttered. 2 decades. He's been doing this right under our noses." His radio crackled as he called for backup, urgency sharp in his voice. The sun lowered, casting long shadows. The shirts swayed gently, each one tethered to a boy's name, a family's grief. Tyler stared at the yellow shirt, his brother's absence condensed into a single, haunting fabric. "How many boys ran off?" Mark asked quietly. "How many did we just accept as gone?" Tyler pulled out his phone, searching archives, matching names to years. 11 gone in 2 decades, 7 shirts hanging. They walked back to the barn. In a hidden compartment of the tool chest, Mark found a small ledger. Dates, initials, numbers, prices. Tyler read aloud, voice hollow. LB, July 2013. No price. Just one word, kept. Both men froze. The implication was sickening. Luke hadn't been sold. He'd been kept. Alive, maybe. Somewhere. The silence of 2 years collapsed into hope and horror at once, a contradiction neither could fully bear. Sirens broke the quiet as state police arrived, but Tyler and Mark barely noticed. Their eyes remained fixed on the yellow shirt swaying in the breeze, proof that Luke's story was far from over. The discovery of the shirts and ledger changed everything. Sheriff Garrett gathered Tyler, Mark, and a handful of deputies at the Brennan kitchen table that night, spreading documents across the wood like pieces of a puzzle. Each paper carried Carl Hendricks' signature, farm maintenance logs tied directly to the disappearances of boys across 3 counties. Dates matched perfectly with each vanishing harvest season after harvest season. It was too precise to dismiss. Tyler slammed a fist against the table. He fixed our combine days before Luke vanished. He sat at this table drinking coffee with our father. All the while he was planning. Garrett rubbed his face, weary lines deepening. Carl's been trusted for 20 years, repairs, welding, field calls. Nobody questioned him. Everyone welcomed him. That trust gave him cover. He used it like camouflage. Mark leaned closer to the ledger. Look at this. 4 boys with prices listed. But Luke's name has none. It just says, kept. What does that mean? Silence settled heavy until Garrett finally spoke. It means your brother might still be alive, but if Hendricks knows we're on to him, that chance shrinks fast. His radio buzzed with updates, but his eyes never left the ledger. Tyler's phone buzzed then. An unknown number. The message chilled him. Stop looking or he disappears forever. Another followed with a photo. Luke, thinner, pale, but unmistakably alive, holding up 3 fingers for the date. Mark whispered, "That's proof. He's alive." Tyler's chest clenched between relief and rage. Garrett barked orders into his radio. "Trace it, now." But the number was burned, untraceable. The predator knew exactly what he was doing. The men sat stunned. 2 years of silence broken by one chilling photograph. Luke wasn't gone. He was caged somewhere close. Hendricks had been working farms, fixing machines, drinking coffee, all while keeping a boy prisoner. Garrett turned to Tyler. "Listen to me. If you go after him alone, Luke dies. He's watching us. He has eyes everywhere. We do this by the book or we lose him." But Tyler's blood boiled. The idea of Hendricks standing in his fields, joking with his father while holding Luke captive, drove him to the edge. "If I see him, I swear I won't wait." That night, deputies searched abandoned properties. Barns, sheds, cellars, nothing. Hendricks had been careful, always a step ahead. Still, the ledger and the shirts proved a network existed. Luke was part of something bigger than anyone realized. Word spread fast among the men of Millbrook. Neighbors shook their heads in disbelief. Carl? Couldn't be. But others remembered small oddities, questions he'd asked, boys he'd watched too closely, reasons that hadn't made sense then. The sheriff called in state investigators. They combed records, tracing Hendricks's service calls, financial dealings, property history. Each connection revealed a chilling pattern. He had positioned himself perfectly, moving unnoticed between farms, hiding crimes behind grease-stained overalls. Mark returned often to the shirts, replaying the moment he first saw Luke's yellow fabric. "He's taunting us," he said, hanging trophies where only the right eyes would see. The predator wanted his legacy recognized. Tyler scoured the ledger again and again. 7 shirts, 11 missing, 4 names without shirts. Where are they? Garrett answered grimly. Either buried or sold, and Hendricks knows exactly which. The predator had hidden in plain sight for decades. Trusted mechanic, helpful neighbor, reliable worker. Behind it all, a hunter who chose boys at harvest, vanishing them without a trace. The mask of normalcy made him untouchable. Now, though, his mask was slipping. The shirts, the ledger, the texts, all signals that the game had changed. Hendricks wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was the central predator of Millbrook County. For the Brennan men, the truth was both hope and horror. Luke might be alive, but so long as Carl Hendricks breathed, every boy in 3 counties was still in danger. The photograph of Luke changed everything. For 2 years, the Brennans had carried nothing but memory, rumor, and silence. Now, for the first time, there was undeniable proof. He was alive somewhere. Tyler studied the image until his hands shook. Luke was thinner, his eyes sunken, but the defiance remained. 3 fingers raised for the date, a message only his brothers could understand. Sheriff Garrett pressed the investigators harder. This predator isn't working alone. He has resources. Phones burned, properties rotated. He's protected. The deputies nodded, grim-faced, understanding that Hendricks was not just one man, but part of something larger. That night, another message came through. Stop looking. Stop asking. Or the boy is gone forever. Attached was audio. Luke's voice, weak but still his, whispering, "I'm here, don't give up." Mark closed his eyes as the sound filled the kitchen. It wasn't just survival. Luke was resisting, even after years in captivity. The strength in his voice reignited hope that had nearly died. Garrett ordered surveillance on Hendricks. Unmarked cars followed his routes, noted every stop, every conversation. But Hendricks moved carefully, smiling in diners, shaking hands with men at farm supply stores, acting like the most ordinary mechanic alive. The predator's ordinary mask made him dangerous. No one suspected the man who fixed their balers and combines. No one noticed when boys disappeared after harvest, because Carl Hendricks had already been there, blending into the background. Tyler couldn't sit still. He drove roads Luke once traveled, staring at barns, abandoned properties, anywhere with a cellar deep enough to hold a captive. Every mile added more fury to his determination. Then another text arrived. Proof of life costs you silence. Keep searching and you bury him. A second photo followed. Luke again, this time holding a newspaper dated that morning. Mark whispered, "He's nearby. That's today's paper. He's taunting us." Garrett agreed but warned, "He's baiting you into a mistake. That paper means he knows we're watching. He's forcing our hand." The Brennan father sat silently through it all, his weathered hands gripping the table. Finally he spoke, voice low. "If my son is alive, no warning, no threat, no devil stops me." Investigators expanded the search radius, mapping every farm Hendricks had worked during Luke's disappearance. Dozens of sites emerged. Old barns, root cellars, grain silos. Hendricks had endless cover across the county, too many places to hide one boy. Yet the ledger pointed to something else. Money changing hands, prices for boys, initials marking transactions. This wasn't one predator acting alone. It was commerce, supply and demand. Luke was part of an operation. Garrett explained it bluntly. He's selling them, treating sons like livestock. Buyers pay, the mechanic delivers. But Luke, he kept. The word kept burned into every mind, heavier than any grave. Tyler slammed the ledger shut. If Luke's alive, he's suffering right now while we sit here. We can't wait. Garrett shot back. Rush in wrong, and Hendricks buries him. That's reality. The men argued deep into the night, but the truth was unavoidable. Hendricks was close. Luke was alive, and every hour wasted was another hour of torment. The predator had proof of life. But proof of life meant more than hope. It meant negotiation. It meant leverage. And in Millbrook County, it meant that one boy's survival was about to collide with decades of secrets hidden in plain sight. By the third day after the proof of life photo, the Brennan men knew waiting was no longer an option. Luke was alive, but each delay gave Hendricks more time to move or kill him. Sheriff Garrett coordinated with state police, setting quiet roadblocks and placing unmarked units along Hendricks' usual routes. Still, there was tension. One wrong move and the predator could vanish with Luke forever. Tyler refused to sit out. "He's my brother. If you keep me away, I'll go in alone." Garrett studied him, then finally agreed. "You ride with me, but you do exactly as I say." Mark volunteered as well, unwilling to abandon the search he had accidentally reignited. The Brennan father, though burning with rage, stayed behind to guard the farm in case Hendricks tried circling back. That evening, a new message arrived on Tyler's phone. "Meet me at the diner, back booth, 2 o'clock, alone. Or your brother dies." Garrett ordered surveillance placed inside and around the diner immediately. Tyler sat in the booth, nerves tight. Minutes crawled until a young man slid into the seat opposite him, Blonde hair, sharp eyes, familiar resemblance. Tyler's voice trembled. "You're Hendricks' son." The boy nodded quickly, glancing at the door. "I have maybe 10 minutes. He thinks I'm at work. Your brother's alive. I've seen him. He moves him between properties." His voice cracked. Tyler leaned forward. "Where?" The boy shook his head. "I can't give exact. He'll know it was me. But he's weakening. Luke's still resisting. He doesn't break. That's why my father kept him." The boy slipped Tyler a folded paper. "Names, places, buyers, notes I've collected since I was old enough to notice. He threatened me too. Said if I talked, I'd disappear like them." Before Tyler could press further, the boy stood abruptly. "I have to go. He checks my tracker, but remember, Luke isn't like the others. He's special to my father, dangerous special." Garrett intercepted Tyler outside, demanding details. Tyler handed over the paper. Garrett scanned the names, his face hardening. "He's not alone. He's part of something much larger. This is organized. This is trafficking." That night, surveillance tracked Hendricks to an abandoned depot. A white van idled near a semi-truck. Shadows moved inside. Garrett whispered into his radio. "We wait until visual confirmation of hostages. Then we move." Through binoculars, Tyler saw Hendricks step from the warehouse carrying a case. He opened the van doors. Inside was a boy tied down, unconscious. But not Luke. Another missing son. "Move in!" Garrett barked. Lights flared. Sirens cut the night. Officers surrounded the van. Hendricks froze, hands raised but backing toward the warehouse. "You don't understand," he shouted. "There are more boys. You need me alive." He reached into his pocket. Multiple officers fired. Hendricks collapsed, blood spreading fast. Tyler sprinted forward, screaming, "We needed him alive! Where's Luke? Tell me!" But Hendricks' eyes glazed. His secrets died with him. The rescued boy was rushed into an ambulance. Tyler stood covered in Hendricks' blood, shaking, desperate. His phone buzzed then. A text from the blonde-haired son. "I know where Luke is. Mitchell Farm Cellar." The convoy raced through back roads until headlights illuminated the abandoned Mitchell property. The son stood waiting near a root cellar entrance. "Down here," he said, voice trembling. "He kept him separate. Special." They descended. Chains clinked in the shadows. Tyler's flashlight found him. Luke, skeletal, bruised but alive. His eyes fluttered open. For a moment, no recognition. Then a whisper. "Tyler, is this real?" Garrett's bolt cutters snapped chains while Tyler cradled his brother, who weighed almost nothing. 2 years of torment had broken him, but not completely. Luke was alive, and that meant the predator had lost. Outside, the night roared with sirens, radios, and shouts. But all Tyler heard was his brother's rasping breath. Against all odds, Luke Brennan had survived. The confrontation had ended, but the war was only beginning. The Mitchell farm was quiet, except for the hum of engines and the shouts of deputies. In the root cellar, 2 boys were carried out, Luke Brennan and another younger boy named Samuel Hayes. Luke clung weakly to Tyler as deputies cleared space. Samuel, barely 15, was trembling and unresponsive, eyes glassy from sedation. Both had been chained like livestock in hidden compartments beneath the concrete. Sheriff Garrett oversaw the scene, barking orders for ambulances and evidence teams. His voice betrayed no emotion, but his jaw was tight. The scale of Hendricks' crimes was unfolding in front of them, undeniable. Mark helped carry Samuel, steadying his limp frame as paramedics rushed him away. 2 years, Mark whispered, staring at Luke. He survived 2 years of this hell. He's stronger than any of us imagined. Tyler refused to let go of his brother. Luke's breath rattled against his chest, each inhale sounding like defiance. "You're safe now," Tyler whispered, though both knew safety was fragile, temporary at best. The Brennan father arrived soon after, pushing through the deputies until he saw his son. His weathered hands trembled as he touched Luke's face. For the first time in years, hope overtook despair. The ambulances pulled away with both boys. Garrett ordered officers to sweep every inch of the property. Beneath rotten boards and false walls, they found evidence: ledgers, photographs, tools. Hendricks had operated here for decades. One notebook revealed names of buyers. Transactions stretched across states. This wasn't just Millbrook's nightmare. It was a network. Hendricks had been only one cog in something larger, something that reached beyond county lines. In the hospital, Luke drifted between consciousness and fevered dreams. His brothers sat at his bedside, watching machines track his heartbeat. Every scar, every hollowed feature told a story of years no words could capture. Samuel lay in another room, monitored constantly. The boy had been missing only months, yet the damage was clear. He rocked back and forth silently, hands tapping a rhythm that only he understood. Doctors explained bluntly, "They'll survive, but survival isn't the same as recovery. Both will need years, maybe a lifetime." The Brennan men nodded, but inside, they were already thinking of the network still lurking. Mark paced the hallways. If Hendricks had buyers, then more boys are out there, some alive, some not. Luke and Samuel are only part of a larger nightmare. We can't stop now. Garrett joined them, holding the newest evidence. This isn't one predator. It's organized. Hendricks delivered. Others purchased. Some local, some far away. The question isn't whether there are more boys. The question is how many. Tyler's fists clenched. Then we go after all of them, every single one. Garrett met his eyes, steady. We will. But this has to be done right. Otherwise, more boys vanish before we even blink. Meanwhile, Luke stirred. His cracked lips formed words barely audible. Not sold, kept. Tyler leaned close, hearing the same word from the ledger. Hendricks had chosen to keep Luke for reasons no one wanted to understand. The thought chilled them. Why keep one boy when others were sold? What twisted attachment had Hendricks formed? The question hung heavy, unanswered, gnawing at every man in the room. News spread quickly across the county. Men gathered at bars, shaking heads, cursing Hendricks' name. Some swore they'd seen him near other farms, lingering longer than necessary. Others wondered how many missing sons had been dismissed as runaways. The rescue was real. Luke was alive. Samuel was alive. Yet the ruins were everywhere. Years of ignored disappearances, families dismissed, predators shielded by trust. The Brennan men knew the fight was far from finished. The county celebrated Luke's survival, yet shadows lingered. For every handshake at the Brennan farm, there was an unspoken question. How many other boys had vanished into the same hidden network of predators? Sheriff Garrett stood before reporters, stone-faced. We recovered 2 sons alive. We uncovered evidence of dozens more. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of a larger investigation. His words carried both hope and warning. Luke lay recovering in his hospital bed, his father at his side. The old man's eyes rarely left his boy, as though he feared Luke might dissolve again into silence and memory. Tyler and Mark pored over the ledgers Hendricks left behind. Names, initials, coded symbols. Some matched missing boys. Others were mysteries. Every page suggested more victims scattered across counties, hidden in barns, cellars, and fields. Samuel Hayes, rescued alongside Luke, spoke little. But one evening he whispered to Tyler, "There were others. I heard them. Locked away. Calling for help." His voice cracked, but his words carried weight. The state investigators confirmed it. Hendricks had partners. Transactions stretched beyond Millbrook, beyond state lines. This was not an isolated monster. This was a market, and Hendricks was merely its rural supplier. Tyler clenched his fists. Then every buyer is guilty. Every man who paid for another son's suffering is part of this. Garrett agreed, but warned. Without proof, they vanish back into shadows. We need evidence. Luke began speaking more as strength returned. He described barns, cellars, vehicles, fragments of conversations. Each detail added another piece to the puzzle. His memory became a weapon against the men who had trapped him, but recovery was uneven. Nightmares gripped him, jolting him awake, sweat soaking his sheets. Sometimes he screamed for help, convinced chains were still on his wrists. His brothers sat through every night, never leaving his side. The Brennan father spoke only once about vengeance. "Hendricks is gone, but others breathe. Until every man behind this is dragged into light, my son isn't safe. None of our sons are safe." News outlets spread the story nationwide. Men in distant towns began questioning old disappearances, connecting dates and faces. Slowly, the myth of runaway boys collapsed into the darker truth. They had been hunted. Samuel's father visited the Brennan farm, gripping hands firmly. "Your fight saved both our sons, but it also showed us how blind we've been. We owe it to every missing boy to finish this." The sheriff created a task force. Former deputies, state officers, investigators, all men determined to dismantle the network Hendricks had served. Each meeting carried the same motto: "No more vanished sons." Mark often returned to the Hendricks property. The shirt still haunted him, 7 swaying fabrics, each one representing a boy's stolen life. "Never again," he muttered each time, staring at the place where the predator hid. Tyler kept Luke close, refusing to let him slip into silence again. They walked the fields together, rebuilding routine. Every sunrise was a reminder that survival itself was an act of defiance. But deep inside, Tyler knew the story wasn't finished. Luke was home, yet countless others remained missing. Shadows stretched beyond Millbrook, shadows that whispered of buyers still waiting, predators still lurking. The Brennan men vowed never to stop until every shadow was burned away. Their fight was no longer just for Luke. It was for every boy who had disappeared, every son stolen by silence. And so the story closed not with peace, but with resolve. The predator was gone, but the network remained. Luke had survived, a living reminder that even in darkness, hope can endure.